New York Knicks come back against the New Orleans Pelicans. Jalen Brunson gets as hot as he's been all season. We talk about it now on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey, what's up, guys? You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Happy Christmas week, happy Hanukkah week, happy holiday week for whatever you're celebrating. We're hoping you're celebrating the start of the new Locked On Knicks newsletter. We're introducing the new Locked On Knicks newsletter, the one-stop shop for Ultimate Team and League coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. It's LockedOnDaily.com. Start your day with the all-new free Locked On Knicks newsletter, writing from Alex and I, our team of national writers, and of course, Josh Lloyd, the best fantasy basketball analyst in the business. We also remind you that today's episode, where we talk about the Knicks kicking some Pelican butt, is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. I want to remind everyone, in case you aren't already, we say it every time, but there's some new listeners here, to subscribe, whether you're watching on YouTube or on your favorite podcast platform of choice. Hit the notifications bell, hit that like button, comment your favorite Jalen Brunson 3, because there were a whole bunch to pick from. The people that are going to take you through it are myself, Gavin, Schall, your Saturday host of Locked On NBA, your favorite play-by-play broadcaster's favorite play-by-play broadcaster, and Alex Wolfe, the editor-in-chief of the Strickland, the greatest Knicks website in the whole wide world. Check them out on all forms of social media at thestrict.land. Alex, I've delayed the inevitable for too long. The New Orleans Pelicans, give them a lot of credit. I thought they played an exceptional first half, still undermanned, no Zion Williamson, no Brandon Ingram, added Herb Jones, but pretty much the same team that the Knicks just blew out about 3 weeks ago at this point, 2.5 weeks ago at this point. And they showed a lot of fight. Herb Jones was far and away, I think, the best defensive player on the floor. They were pressing the Knicks at points. They were really bothering Jalen Brunson. He had 3 different turnovers in the first half. And then none of it mattered because Jalen Brunson went absolutely volcanic, 7 of 10 from 3. I think 6 of the 7 came in the second half, 39 points, 6 assists. Night, the Pelicans, and the Knicks win another game, 18-10. I think a season high now, 8 games over 500.
Yeah, I'll give the Pelicans their props too. While the going's good in the beginning, like Herb Jones and Trey Murphy, I think are awesome. I think that like either of those two guys, if they would become available, which I doubt they will be, would be like the skeleton key to like turn the Knicks into the title contender that they need to be, because like Herb Jones especially is just awesome. I mean, the fact that he's as big as he is and that he was able to like bother Brunson as much as he did early on in this game was a huge testament to him. I mean, I thought that he was fantastic. Really Brunson, I think, managed to get it together and put together the game that he ended up having once he had DeJounte Murray on him for a minute. He really started to cook him, and then that was kind of, the end right there. Like you said, it was basically just Steph Curry style night there for the Pelicans once Brunson got going. 39 points, 13 and 19 shooting, 7 of 10 from 3, 6 of 6 from the free throw line, and threw 6 assists in there for good measure and 2 steals. I mean, it was one of those games where, a game after having Cat do what he did to Minnesota, where that was such a good reminder of like, oh yeah, the Knicks just added like, a guy who on any given night could be the best scorer in the NBA that night, to a guy who also has that title in Jalen Brunson. But it was a nice reminder on a night where Cat sort of, I don't want to say that he was like the reason that the Knicks were down or something, but like he certainly didn't help matters. Like he got into foul trouble in this one. He just seemed like he was having a hard time getting comfortable, which you would have thought, like, I mean, I know that Yves Missi on the Pelicans has been like kind of a revelation as a rookie this year and has been really good. But like you would have thought that this was just a barbecue chicken matchup for Cat, like Cat against a rookie center, like it should have been easy pickings. And yet, Cat sort of had an off day. So it's nice having that reminder of, oh yeah, it's the reason that you went and got Cat is because you already had a Jalen Brunson on the roster, who is one of the best scorers in the entire NBA, who can win you a game basically single-handedly any given night. And at the start of that second half, especially, I mean, the Knicks were, they were doing all right, like just kind of hanging in there through the first half. But you were kind of just like, all right, like, can they just step it up already? Like, what are you doing here? And the second half starts and Brunson just is like, okay, I'm going to get inside. I'm going to draw fouls. And I mean, they were calling it out on the MSG broadcast. Breen has gotten like very vocal in the campaigning for Brunson to get more foul calls at this point. Like, he was just straight up being like, every possession down the floor, like, I'm pretty sure Brunson was just fouled there. Like, Jamal Crawford, what do you think? And Jamal will be like, yeah, I think he got fouled too. And it was just one of those where he was getting slapped around a little bit, and he would get the call maybe half the time, but then it didn't even matter if he got the call some of the time, because he would just manage to get past his man anyway, get inside, get a nice floater, sometimes get an and one. And then once the 3-point shot got going, it was curtains basically. I mean, he was just dribbling the ball down the floor and without even pausing, just, stopping a couple feet behind the line, draining a three. And that was when they went on that big run in the second quarter. He had 16 points in the second quarter, 13 in the fourth quarter, or sorry, third quarter, fourth quarter. I mean to say the beginning of the second half. And it was just, it was the Brunson show, 29 points in the second half. And he basically carried them right to the win. But yeah, it was, like I said, just a nice reminder to I know that Brunson has not always had his I don't even want to say that he hasn't had his A stuff every game this year. I feel like he has been intentionally setting the table for his teammates and deferring to them to get them going in a lot of games, the last game included, where I just feel like, there wasn't anything the Timberwolves were doing that really prevented him from scoring more, but he just kind of opted not to, with Cat playing as well as he was. But good reminder that on a night when other people don't have it going, Brunson can just step in and say, okay, I got this, guys, don't worry, and get them a win against a team that if they would have gotten a loss against, would have just been really annoying considering how good the last game was.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I think that was part of why New Orleans came out so good. The Knicks had a little bit of a hangover, and Breen mentioned it, but they'd lost 14 of 15 coming in, and I have a feeling Willie Green pregame was like, "Hey, these guys are going to be ripe for the picking early in this game, right? They're going to be a little fat on that Wolves win. Let's come out, let's punch them in the mouth." They did, and to your point, that to me that's the definition of a superstar tonight, where you don't have your best stuff, where your bench, what did they get? 6 bench points in this game. Your bench essentially gives you nothing. And you just say, hey, like your second star and Cat is struggling. And I think those 3 fouls, like to your point, I think there would have been a stretch where Misi was barbecue chicken, but the 3 fouls just totally took him out of rhythm. Like Cat just never really had any kind of dominant stretch of offense. Like we'll get to it. He made 1 or 2 really big shots down the stretch, but like never found any kind of rhythm. And it was sort of like roll out the ball and say, hey, Jalen, like go be the superstar we pay you. We slightly underpay you to be. And he was exactly that. This is about as hot as I've ever seen him get. I think the Suns game last year, there were certainly some games late in the season, certainly some times in both the Sixers series and the Pacers series where he was scalding. But in terms of just dribbling the ball up the court and firing like you were describing, I don't really remember it. Like he had one point, had 11 straight in the second half, like and the crazy thing, to your point, like a lot of it was with Herb Jones on the bench, but it was still with like bigger physical defenders on. Like DeJounte Murray at one point was considered the best point guard defender in the NBA. Trey Murphy has 7-8 inches on him, and Brunson's just putting a 3 in his eye. The Knicks, I thought, were really smart, like mixing up the ways they were getting him threes. Like they had a stagger screen to involve CJ McCollum, Jamal Crawford. Great job pointing this out in the broadcast. CJ didn't want to switch it, so he just kind of crosses back between the 2 screens, hits a 25-foot 3. Just dribbles the ball up the court at one point, hits a 26-footer, and then turns around before it even goes in. Like that was the full-on Steph. And then a pull-up like 26 or 27-footer, like foot like touching the ad. Like he was just crazy. And then I thought in the fourth quarter, he did a great job leveraging his shooting. One, by drawing a bunch of double teams, and the Knicks early were not really doing a good job playing out of his doubles. Like I'm so used to the Knicks getting a great shot every single time he's double teamed. And again, give New Orleans credit. They were rotating really well off it, but Josh Hart started acting as an outlet. Like he got a layup. There was another play where Mikal like popped to the foul line, or excuse me, Deuce popped to the foul line and then hit Mikal in the right corner. So the Knicks were doing different stuff. And then it was just Jalen like going downhill because they were clearly overplaying him, saying, all right, you're not shooting more threes than us. And Jalen said, that's fine. Like went right at Brandon Boston, got a layup, like drew a foul on Herb Jones, and then pretty much ended the game late. Like as the Knicks drained the full clock, drive on both Trey Murphy and Herb Jones, banked it in. And it was just one of those nights where there's just not a good answer for him. Like the Pelicans are, when they're healthy and they're relatively healthy defensively right now, about as well equipped as any team in the league to try and stop Jalen Brunson, maybe this side of the Hawks, just because Dyson Daniels and he former Pelican as of a year ago, they have guys to throw at him, and just none of it mattered. I thought this was his best game of the season.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, I think it's, I don't know how much more to say about it. Like, it's kind of like we've seen all the things that lead to a game like this before, so it's one of those funny things where it was like, yeah, he just did all the things that we know that he can do. But he did have some help along the way. Mikal Bridges had 18 points, and I think once again made some high leverage shots, which is something that we've been missing from him recently. Josh Hart returned from whatever his personal issue was. I hope again, the implication was everything is okay, which is good. But he returned and had 14 points, 8 boards, 5 assists, 2 steals, and a block. Really stuffed the stat sheet. So those two guys had great complimentary nights, as well as OG Anunoby playing fairly well, still not shooting quite as well as you want. There's a lot more guys to get into, so we're going to get into it in just a moment when we come back.
First, I want to tell you about our good friends over at Skylight Frame. Are you missing someone this holiday season and want them to be part of your festivities from afar? Boy, do we have the perfect gift for you. Skylight Frame is the touchscreen digital photo frame your entire family will love. Upload thousands of photos with your phone and watch them appear in seconds. It's so easy to use. Setup takes less than 60 seconds. That might be my single favorite part of Skylight Frame. I get so frustrated when I get a great gift and it takes me hours to actually use it. Seamless sharing. You can invite friends and family, easily share photos via the free Skylight mobile app or email, and there's no account or subscriptions required. You can add photos straight from your phone from anywhere. That means it only takes a tap to send new photos to a frame across the country. And they're a top-rated brand, over 1 million happy customers, thousands of 5-star reviews, and available in over 30 countries, recommended by the Today Show, Forbes, New York Mag, and more. And now, as a special limited time offer for our listeners, get $20 off your purchase of the Skylight Frame when you go to skylightframe.com/NBA. That's SKYLIGHTFAME.com/NBA. Get $20 off your purchase now at skylightframe.com/NBA. Hey, what's up, guys? We are back here on Locked On Knicks. The Knicks down by as many as 14 points in the second half of this one, right? The Pelicans were kind of controlling things early, applying pressure. The Knicks got going, came back, and then Cat was back in the game, and the Pelicans rip off this 13-3 run. They take a 14-point lead, and it just felt like one of those nights, Alex, where we come on the podcast after and we say, man, this is a team that just can't really deal with success this year, and another sort of inexplicable game that they shouldn't have lost, but they don't bring it. And basically, it's interesting. Like, I'm curious. Like, do you come away from this one like feeling optimistic or pessimistic? Because it's so like based on your perspective. Like, glass half full, you can say Jalen was a superstar. Josh came back, to your point, played super well, 14, 8, and 5. Mikal was an Iron Man, 45 minutes. And they did enough to win on a night where Catwood didn't have it, on a night where OG didn't have it, on a night where the bench, again, gives you just 6 points. But also, I think, one, like, OG not shooting great, not the biggest concern in the world. Like, I think he'll turn it around, but it has been a long stretch at this point. The bigger thing for me, like, if I were going to go negative, and there's a positive because they have some help coming, but, like, another, like, offensively, like, you just get 0 from the bench. I thought Sims and Precious were both awesome defensively, and that mitigates it a little bit. But this is a team that I think just desperately needs some bench help at this point. I don't know if that's where you want to go. If you want to take it a different direction, say that for the third segment, that's fine. But that's sort of where my mind was after this game.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll just address the pessimistic versus optimistic. I'm still optimistic. I mean, I think it's easy to forget, but like if we went back and looked at last year or the year prior, or any of the years under Tibbs, I mean, there are plenty of times where this team comes out, or where past iterations of the Knicks have come out and looked like crap against a crappy team early on, and then turn it on in the second half and win. And ultimately, we won't really go back and, like, if it hits May and the Knicks are still playing in the second round of the playoffs or whatever, we're not going to look back and be like, oh, but remember when they faced the Pelicans and like they went down in the first half, like a win's a win. That's kind of how I look at it. And the fact that they did win it rather than, end up losing it. I would say that, like, for example, um, I'm trying to remember which game it was, the Hawks game, like the in-season or the NBA Cup game where they just sort of laid down the stretch, and it looked almost like they were like when they were just giving up all those back cuts and everything else like that was more discouraging to me, because I felt like, I mean, I know the Hawks have been playing the role of like Kingslayer this year and like beating all the really good teams and not necessarily playing as well against the bad teams. So maybe that's just, a bad matchup for the Knicks and for anybody. But like, I look back at like that game, and that game was more concerning to me than, say, this game, where it's like I just want to see them never laying down and whatever. But I do agree with you, if we're talking about the bench, like it is a little concerning that we're at a point where Mikal Bridges had to play 45 minutes against the Pelicans, who are down like their top 3 players and have lost 14 of 15, now 15 of 16 after this game. Like, the fact that Mikal has to play 45 minutes, the fact that Brunson himself had to play 40 minutes, like Josh Hart 42 minutes, OG 37, Cat only played 27 because, to your point, like Jericho and Precious put together a pretty solid like 23 minutes together, to on defense and everything. But like, Deuce basically gave them nothing in this game, which you never want to see that. Like offensively, we were talking about him, early on this season, like, oh, this guy might realistically compete for 6th man of the year. And now he's kind of just fallen back into like being more inconsistent again, which, it might be that he's still dealing with that knee injury. Like, it seems like it's been kind of bothering him on and off, and game to game, he might turn up questionable if he takes a bad step the previous game or whatever. But they also are just in a position where they can't afford to not have his minutes at this point, because even if he only plays 16 minutes and goes 1 of 6, like, you just need someone to soak up a few minutes so that Brunson doesn't have to play 48. I think the big thing is, Landry Shamet now is re-signed. They waived Matt Ryan, re-signed Landry Shamet based off the preseason that he had, based off the ball handling chops that he has. Like the fact that, I mean, it's easy to forget, but like he came into the NBA viewed more as like a point guard, and then sort of settled into more of a 3-and-D sort of role. But I mean, he's able to handle the ball a little bit, maybe just in a Josh Hart type context where you don't want him to bring it down every single time, but he's not incompetent with the ball in his hands. Like maybe that allows them to have a lineup where you can have, Cameron Payne, Deuce McBride, Landry Shamet, and actually give, one of Mikal and OG a rest from time to time. I think they're just in need of that, if for nothing else, just to make sure that these guys don't get burnt out, though. They all do seem to be in great condition, and nobody is making any comments. Like even Josh Hart would jokingly make comments, like last year when he was playing 40 something minutes a game about like, oh, I need a rest here and there, like, oh, I'm getting run into the ground, whatever. Nobody's making those comments this year. Everybody seems to just understand, like, if this is what we got to do to win, then this is what we got to do to win. And, Tibbs is getting them rest where they need it. I don't know. I guess that's kind of where I fall on it. Maybe it's a little bit of a non-answer, but like I'm mostly just kind of at the point where I'm like, the bench depth will be great. At a certain point, the bench is going to need to start producing more in the points department, because you can't just keep having them score, like you said, like single digits. I mean, I feel like single digits or very low double digits, like in the teens, is what the bench has been scoring lately. And really need to have a few nights where some of those guys go off a little more, mostly looking at Deuce, but Payne, is very flighty, and Shamet hopefully will be a little more of a consistent presence once he gets in there. But overall, my worry level isn't high, because if you look at where this team is at versus where other Tibbs teams have been at this time of the year, they're pretty well ahead of the curve, actually. Usually the team is floating still closer to like 500 around this time, and really starts to hit their stride around January. I think this Knicks team is a little ahead of the curve right now, and that gives me a little bit more hope than usual.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And look, if you want to just zoom out a little bit, they're now 8-2 in their last 10 games. They're 13-4 in their last 17 games. So pessimism would be the wrong word. It does feel like what the Knicks have always done under Tibbs, and what Tibbs has always done just wherever he's coaching, where you are like this is a night if you're a team, I don't know, let's just say like the Philadelphia 76ers that spent years like basically injury managing your guys and said, hey, we'll lose some regular season games if it means we are at least theoretically in peak condition to start the playoffs. This might have been a night where the Knicks lost. Like, I don't know, like maybe Brunson just going volcanic would have single-handedly been enough for them to win the game anyways. But it felt like, let's just say Mikal plays 39 minutes and you give 6 extra minutes to Deuce. Do the Knicks still win the game? And that's, I've always been so curious about that calculation while watching Tom Thibodeau teams, because my answer has generally been like, yeah, the whole point of getting all this talent is you have that margin for error and you can rest guys. But Tibbs says, all right, I maybe have a, I don't know, 55% chance of winning if I do that on a night where Deuce just doesn't have it. If I just play Mikal the 45 minutes, I feel like I have an 80% chance of winning. And maybe that's how you win at 8 out of 10. Maybe that's how you win 13 out of 17. Is that worth it to get a higher seed, to get home court in the first 2 rounds? I don't know. It's an interesting conversation. I think Tom Thibodeau would tell you, I think the way my guys are ready for the playoffs is by playing 45 minutes in the regular season. And there's a big debate on the science there. Doesn't seem like it's totally settled yet. So I don't need to have the minutes conversation on a nightly basis. Like, it usually doesn't bother me that much, but I do think it's something to watch. And the complaining about it, of course, won't really start, even us included, until one of these guys gets hurt. And then maybe we'll say, well, maybe Mikal should have been playing 47 minutes, or maybe OG should have been playing 32. I do know Landry Shamet, to your point, will help, because I think he's more than capable of soaking up minutes. I do think it hurt them tonight to not have Towns with that bench unit, because we saw Deuce really get going in the Wolves game when he got to play with Towns and he got to play with that 5-out lineup and was just getting open shots. He did get 3 open threes and missed 3 open threes tonight. So maybe that's just on him to some extent, but I don't know. I think all of that is fascinating to watch. One final note on my end before we hit the break and maybe just pop around and talk about some of the guys individually. Alex, I'll leave it to you to guess. Over the last 10 games, where do you think the Knicks rank in the entire NBA in defensive rating now?
I'm going to assume it's higher than I think. So I'm going to say 3rd.
You nailed it. They're third in the NBA in defensive rating, behind only the Thunder and the Timberwolves, giving up just 104.4 points per 100 possessions. It has come against a slate of largely very bad offensive teams. So I think that's an important caveat. I want to see when the schedule picks up how they do. Fortunately for the Knicks, they have one of the easiest schedules in basketball this year. And I think tonight was another night that shows you when all these guys are locked in. And I think even when they were struggling this game, New Orleans was super hot from 3 early. Like, they can still really, really, really I'm sorry. My point there is New Orleans was shooting really well early. I thought the Knicks were playing great defense throughout in this one. We'll talk about it more in just a sec here on Locked On Knicks.
But first, we want to let you know about our friends over at Built. Today's episode is sponsored by Built Rewards. If you're a renter, listen up. This is a total game changer. Thanks to Built, you can now earn points on rent payments just like you do with groceries or travel. Paying rent now comes with serious perks, and it's completely free to join. Earn valuable Built points on your rent and everyday spending at no extra cost. Redeem points towards flights, hotel stays, and even future rent payments. With over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels in their program, the possibilities are endless. Access unique experiences that are exclusive to Built members. I like using points for travel, and Built makes it easy to turn rent into rewards. So if you're already paying rent, why would you not make it work for you, right? Like, it's tough as a renter sometimes to just get that rent payment out there to start with, and you're like, but where's the money for the travel? Like, how can I have fun other than just having a living situation, especially in this economy? So being able to earn rewards and then potentially get some stuff for free just for paying rent seems like a no-brainer to me. So start earning points on rent you're already paying by going to joinbuilt.com/lockedonnba. That's joinbuilt.com/lockedonnba. Make sure to use our link so they know we sent you. Don't wait. Start earning rewards today.
And this episode is also brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel. America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. FanDuel has so many ways to pick up a W. I love betting on which player will score a touchdown and how many points each team will score. It's thrilling. Tonight, I would pour my money, Alex, on Monday Night Football on Josh Jacobs. I think this is going to be a ground and pound game for the Packers. They're going to have a lot of confidence that New Orleans is not going to be able to beat them through the air. With Spencer Rattler, I think they're going to give Jacobs a lot of opportunity to take time off the clock and just sort of grind this New Orleans team into dust. So if you visit FanDuel.com to join today, that's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, we're back to wrap things up. We haven't really gone in depth on anyone. So, Alex, I'll leave it to you. Who was sort of the standout guy to you this side of Jalen Brunson?
I'm tempted to say Mikal Bridges, but I'm actually going to say Josh Hart to start with. I think the Knicks really enjoyed getting him back. It was kind of cool, actually. It's easy to forget about his stint with the Pelicans because it feels like a million years ago. But it's also crazy to think that Willie Green has been coached for that long at this point. But there was a cool moment on the MSG broadcast where they showed a quote from Josh Hart kind of crediting Willie Green for empowering him to like kind of become the player that he's become. And obviously then Hart was part of the CJ McCollum deal, sent him to Portland, and then eventually, was part of the deal to get him sent to New York for Cam Reddish and a draft pick. I think that it really showed, like he kind of said like, oh, this is the guy who like empowered me to sort of become more of a playmaker and whatever. And then they showed his averages from New Orleans. And I was actually like, wow, that's actually staggeringly similar to what he averages for the Knicks. Like, it's easy to forget that that's where he was, because then he went to Portland and they sort of, just for lack of better options, had him become like a A1 offensive option for like a year and a half, or like, I guess cumulatively about 1 year. But it was cool, like seeing him come back to New Orleans and then have the game that he did. I think the Knicks just really missed the rebounding. First off, I mean, we saw that Precious filled in nicely in that Minnesota game and rebounded well and made that, less of an issue. But it's nice to see, Hart back out there doing what he does best, getting rebounds, pushing in transition. But the secondary ball handling is just so valuable for them. And he's so good at getting like the non-Brunson, non-Cat guys involved. Like, I'm not saying that Brunson doesn't also do that, but Hart just has a certain sixth sense about like where Mikal Bridges is going to be, where OG Anunoby is going to be, that when he brings the ball down and he runs a quick screen action and, he gets going downhill, he's just really great at drawing the defense in and waiting till just the perfect opportune moment to find those guys. Even at one point, like, I mean, we were talking about how good the Pels defense was in this one. And, they played some zone, which kind of vexed the Knicks a little bit at times in this one. But at one point, Hart just drove in, got the defense to collapse on him so well that Bridges got like 15 seconds to take a three-pointer. It's like he got the ball past him and then Bridges took a look around and was like, I'm so wide open right now. Like, he took one dribble, treated it like a free throw almost, like took a dribble, paused for a second, and then really lined it up, got that motion just right, and like perfectly switched it. That's sort of the Josh Hart effect, I think. He's so good at dribbling at 1,000 miles an hour and then turning it into, like, just, I don't know if I was going to keep the driving reference going. It's like he's like an F1 driver, like going 250 and then just finding that perfect combo of hitting the brakes and accelerating through the turn, to not skid out, but also, and, create a turnover or something, but also just hit it just right, hit someone right in the breadbasket with that pass and, accelerate through that turn and keep things going. So I thought he had a fantastic game. It was great seeing him back. I'm glad everything's okay for him on the personal front or whatever. And also to boot, added 2 steals and a block, and I thought had a solid impact on the defensive end that the Knicks were missing as well. So just an all in all quintessential Josh Hart game, outside of maybe the 3-point shooting where he only shot 1 of 4, but more than made up for it in every other aspect of the game.
Yeah, I thought he was awesome. His cutting early was really important when the Pelicans, again, were not really like as incredible. That's sort of the crazy thing about this game, is that Jalen, though he was making shots, like couldn't even get into his shots. Like, Jalen had 3 different turnovers. I think 2 of them were live ball turnovers early, where like Herb Jones was getting into his business and poking it away. Like, one point he just dribbled it right into like the body of it was Robinson Earl. DeJounte Murray poked away an inbounds from him. And then Josh was sort of saving them because he just kept having like these perfectly timed cuts to the rim, either for layups. Like, And he is brilliant at turning a cut into an assist for someone else. Like had one where like he had one where he benefited from OG driving, where he had an up and under, but then in the second half where he dove to the rim, caught it, like double teamed, jumped under the guy, and just slipped it to Mikal, cutting at the last second for a layup. I'm with you. I thought his defense was awesome in this one. We can pivot to Mikal Bridges, because I thought he was just such a good outlet in this game. And to me, that's always like if you were going to strip down his role from Brooklyn and Phoenix to the bare minimum, that's what you're looking for from Mikal Bridges. It's just like, hey, can you be someone when we have Karl-Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson, and on nights like tonight, Josh Hart, guys who have all this gravity, can you just be like an overqualified assassin off it? And I thought, to your point on that three where he had 20 seconds to shoot, like he was really good at that. He's overqualified for that role, but he was killing it. And he mixed in like some running in transition. Like he caught a lob dunk. I can't imagine he's more than 2 or 3 dunks all year. So that was really nice to see. Like was cutting in for little fadeaways, like got a short jumper off a tipped offensive rebound. Like he's someone who, like, again, on a night like tonight where you're not going to really use him on the ball, and I still think he should be used on the ball a little bit more, but such a luxury to have as a play finisher. I thought when he was on CJ McCollum, his pick and roll defense was really good, chasing him around, forced him into some tough shots. At one point, poked away a pass from him for a steal. My only critique for Mikal Bridges tonight is 45 minutes, 0 rebounds, which I feel like you almost have to try to not get a rebound somehow in 45 minutes. Like, Alex, you or I could be out there, and at some point a ball would just fall to us, and we'd maybe hold on to it for a second, and it would count as a rebound before it got stolen and we had to go to the hospital. I would like to see Mikal a little more active on the glass, but I don't know. What do you want to do between Anunoby and Towns next? Because I thought Towns, some nice supplemental stuff in this game with the 10 rebounds, his top of the key passing was pretty essential. 5 fouls, 5 turnovers, only 3 made field goals. Was kind of the stinker that you just seem to get from him once every 10 games or so.
Yeah, and I think it was fine, even for everything with Towns, like even for having kind of a stinker and having 5 personal fouls and just kind of constantly grappling with getting himself into foul trouble in this game with largely silly fouls. I think that he still made some shots that the Knicks needed from him. Had a big 3 at one point, I think in the third quarter, when the Knicks were sort of starting to run it up, and it felt like a backbreaker. It's just one of those where it was like, oh man, now the guy that's not even playing that well today just made a 3 in our eye from the corner. Like, what are we going to do at this point on the Pelican side? But it is what it is with Cat. We knew that this was part of the deal. I remember Ben Beacon, our correspondent, and our coworker, I guess you could say, for the Timberwolves podcast, like, told us, after the trade, like, yeah, he's gonna have a lot of amazing performances. Occasionally, he's gonna really annoy you, and just put up a game where you're just like, what the heck were you doing? Like, why did you just miss that, or like commit that foul or whatever? He's going to have those frustrating moments. So I thought it was just one of those games. I'm fine with it. It's you live with that. What's getting a little more concerning is that OG shot isn't coming back, and so I'm less concerned with Cat because he's still, he only shot 3 of 10, but he just looked a little out of sorts. But OG has kind of looked a little out of sorts from the 3-point line for like weeks now.
Yeah.
And it's concerning because there was a point where we were like, man, this guy is a real all-star case, like 15 or so games in, where he was like shooting 40% from 3 and, just scoring in a variety of ways and handling the ball more. And just kind of, it's all sort of gone downhill from that 40-point game that he had. He set his new career high, and then all of a sudden it's like, he just forgot how to shoot the 3. And it's becoming more reminiscent of last year. And, I'm not dooming over this or anything. Like, I think it is just a slump, and I think this is just who OG is as a player. Like, I think that he, we saw it even last year, like when he was what we thought was healthy. Obviously had the bone issue in his elbow last year that, as we learned later, was apparently way more of an deterrent to his shooting than we thought it was. But I don't know. I don't know if there's still something going on there. I do notice that he still wears the same tape arrangement on his right elbow, which is like this like this crazy like Frankenstein setup of like rock tape or whatever, or kinesiology tape, where it's like one going down the outside of his elbow on the front, and then one going down the outside of his elbow on the back, and then one each like on his forearm and on his like tricep, kind of holding the thing in place. This little rig. So I don't know if that's still bothering him in some way, even though it's been what, like, when did he get that surgery done? March. So it's been 9 months or so since that surgery at this point. Or I guess it was like February actually, because he got it like right after the hot stretch in January, because then he had to sit down, and then it was like a week or two, and then they were like, okay, he has to get surgery. So it was like February. So I guess it's been about 10 months now since he had that done. Obviously came back in the playoffs, and like it was the hamstring that eventually took him out there. But I thought that, he looked comfortable back then, and he looked comfortable to start the season. I don't know if that's starting to bother him again, but either way, like the 3-point percentage has not been inspiring recently. I didn't pull up the numbers, but I'm sure over his last 10 to 15 games or so, he's probably been shooting about 27% or something from three. So hopefully we see him turn the corner soon. Again, maybe that's one of those guys where you got to start looking at like, hey, maybe we should not be playing this guy 40 minutes a night, and give him a little more time to recover between games and stuff. I do feel like playing with Mikal Bridges has probably helped him a bit, in the terms of Mikal talks about he has like a crazy stretching regimen and everything else. And OG, maybe in an effort to avoid those like hamstring injuries and stuff, has been doing that with him. I don't really see anything where OG has looked like he's coming up lame or anything, like at least in his lower body. But I am curious what's led to this huge downturn in the 3-point efficiency, because other than the 3-point shooting, like if he had shot just like even just one more make from three in this game, he would have been like 7 for 17 for the game, which still isn't like ideal, but like he was cutting well. Things were looking pretty good. It's mostly just the jump shot that has started to worry me at this point.
Yeah, if you heard a lot of clacking in the background while you're listening to this podcast, it's because I was desperately trying to find those numbers. Shout out to StatMuse. So since before the Denver game, this is from memory, but I think he was at about 43% from three. Last 11 games, the number is 23.5% from three. Only 38% from the field in general, which obviously, I don't know if his 2-point percentage changes, probably just that he's shooting so bad from three. But yeah, it's frustrating, because I think we were both spending a lot of time. We did a full episode on it, like just saying, all right, this guy made a leap, and he went from someone who was like the ultimate role player to, hey, like if he, like his first 20 games, like, or whatever, not 20 games, whatever it was, like 15, 16 games, credible argument for all NBA. Like I'm not even talking all-star, like third team all NBA. Like I think he was a top 5 defensive player, and it felt like he was like a top 40, 50 offensive player in the league. Maybe that's too high, because there still wasn't a lot of shot creation, but he was so efficient. And he was like, the one other thing I'd note, like he was really getting into his mid-range bag. And it wasn't like, again, it's not like 12 dribbles into a step back and like putting together moves on moves, but it was like pump, one dribble, little arm bar to get the guy off you. And it just looked kind of like a poor man's Kawhi Leonard. Like he was super efficient. He finally tried one of those tonight. It didn't go in, but he hasn't even been taking that shot. He missed, like he had a sequence where he had DeJounte Murray on him, and he missed a jump hook, and he missed a putback layup. So I would say it's gone not way beyond the 3-point shooting, because there's still a lot of stuff you like, but he's not really getting out in transition and dunking as much as he was early in the year. It does feel like, I don't know if it's the shooting affecting the rest of his game, or to your point, it's something physical. And in the past, he would have been sitting the last 5 or 6 games, but this year he's like, no, we need me, because this team has no depth. And I've pointed out a lot, but even with all the health issues on the bench and not having Precious, not having Mitch for a long time, this is a Knicks team that has been shockingly healthy in the starting lineup. And I feel bad saying it, because I feel like I'm jinxing it and there'll be an injury, but they haven't really missed Cat for any substantial time. Jalen's missed maybe 1 game all year. I can't even remember if he's missed a game. OG hasn't missed a game. Mikal hasn't missed a game. Josh has barely missed time. He's missed 2 now all season. Like they've been really, really healthy. And part of that could be guys just playing through stuff. We know Cat's played through stuff. We know Jalen's played through stuff. If I had to guess, OG's probably playing through stuff, and maybe it's bearing some effect. I'm hoping at some point, I mean, they just got a little bit of a break. Maybe they get another break and it helps them out. Landry Shamet, again, will help things. But we probably spent too much time talking about a Pelicans game that outside of Jalen Brunson cooking was not all that exciting. So we'll wrap things up there. We'll remind you to check out the new Locked On Knicks newsletter, and we'll have plenty more for you Christmas week. A deep dive tonight on Landry Shamet. And then Wednesday, Alex, I am super excited to watch Victor Wembanyama, who's been playing like one of the best players on planet Earth, against Jalen Brunson. It was a movie last time. I think it'll be even better this time around. But until then, we'll talk to you very, very soon on Locked On Knicks.